Welcome back to the workshop, everyone. My name is Eric. We are here at Xhale Spearfishing, and if you've seen our recent video that we put up, one of our recent videos, we started a little series where we're kind of reviewing guns in a sense of taking kind of the manufacturer specs and then doing some real world measurements to just give you a baseline of how to compare different guns that are on the market. There's a ton of different guns out there, and there's really no easy way to just compare them all on paper. So what we have here is a Riffe Euro 100 centimeter gun. We're going to use 100 centimeters for try to keep it around that range for a lot of the reef guns. And really, one of the main things that we're changing is we're going to be coming into taking a peek at this Xhale Punch Rating. We have scratched our brains and done a little bit of math and think we've come up with a good way to kind of get a baseline number for how powerful, kind of how much penetration those things are all going to kind of factor in. We'll get in more later on how we're coming up with this rating. But for now, we'll go ahead and get started just taking some measurements off this gun. So like I said, this is the Riffe Euro 100 centimeter. That is the model length is 100 centimeters. The stock length, which I already have written down, is 50 inches, and that's going to be measured, taking the measurement from the end of the muzzle to the end of the butt, or whatever is the farthest length on the gun. So we've got 50 inches on the dot there. And we'll take our band tension. As you can see, we've got this little rig here, which is a little sketchy looking. I do not suggest replicating this, but we're gonna measure band tension. So our band stretch on this gun, which is gonna be, we're measuring from the band slot to the back tab on the shaft. So it's gonna be kind of a measurement of the maximum band stretch. We're looking at 39 inches. So we already got one band off the gun put on there. We're gonna stretch her out to 39 inches and see how many pounds of force this bad boy is packing down. So let's get this guy going. I think the scale is already on and teared out. So we got all zeros there. And we'll get this guy back to 39. Engaging the clicker, loud noise. Hopefully that's the loudest noise we hear during this process.
We're at 35, 38, a couple more clicks, 2 more. There you go, 39.
And we are at, what are we at, Ron?
117.
117 pounds. Leave a comment down below what you thought, how much poundage per band you thought were on a spear gun. When we first started messing around with this, that was not my guess.
No.
A lot more than my guess.
Another crazy thing put in on the scale is how fast the bands lost poundage.
Yeah, like just sitting idle. I'm sure there's a certain amount of flex that we're getting and like stretching that, but yeah, you can literally watch the scale go down as the band sits on it. But that's a whole other conversation. So, what are we at? 117?
117.
117 pounds of band tension.
Times 2.
Per band.
Yeah.
Right? So, we've got 2 bands on this gun. As you can see over here, just go over the factory rigging. From the factory, this Riffe Euro is going to come with a double wrap of 300-pound mono and 2 5/8 bands that are cut to 23.5 inches. There's going to be a little bit of variation in band measurements, but just for the sake of what we're doing, I'm measuring band length from knot to knot. So I'm not measuring the unstretched part of the band. No wishbone and this little knob left over on the end I'm not measuring. I'm measuring from constrictor knot to constrictor knot. So 23.5 inch bands, 2 of them at 117 pounds. What's 17 times 2? 38?
4?
34?
34?
Math. So we've got 234 pounds. That's a ton of weight. That's a ton of tension. It's crazy. It honestly puts into perspective how much like lateral force is being put on a gun like this. That's why when you get into like the real long pipe guns, 140 centimeters plus, 150 centimeters.
Even like 120, 130.
Yeah,
carbon guns.
They get quite a lot of flex in them, so that's one factor to consider. That's why those guns are flexing out the way they are. So moving on to some shaft specs, and this is kind of where the shaft specs and the band tension are going to play into our Xhale Punch Rating, trademarked. This shaft on this gun, we got shaft length. This is going to be from the factory. We're looking at 55 inches. Shaft diameter is going to be in
7?
Yeah, what's the, can't think of the inch conversion.
You can just put 7 mil.
9/32 / 7.1 millimeter.
Dang.
I want to get technical. And the shaft weight, this is going to be kind of the kicker for that power rating. We're going to be measuring this in ounces. And this factory Riffe Euro shaft is 15.6 ounces. All right, so let's keep all that in mind. We're going to continue going down here. We've got the loading length, which is a metric that we've kind of come up with ourselves. The reason I find this important is, well, for starters, what we're measuring here is going to be the distance from the butt to the loading tab, on the back loading tab on the shaft. Let me go ahead and throw this guy back in here. And the reason you want to pay attention to that, the shorter that loading length is, the more difficult it is to load the gun. So if you have a nice, well, there's a little bit of a trade-off there, but if you have a nice long buttstock extension, you don't have to pull that band as far back, right? So, and it's, without getting too much into the details of how it affects overall length of gun, the farther you got to rip that band back and the closer you have to get it to your chest, not only is it more unstable to load, you have a lot more kind of angle for the gun to come back at, but your body geometry, it's more difficult to get back all the way when you're loading 117 pounds of force all the way to your chest. So the farther that distance is, in theory, the gun is going to be a little bit easier to load.
And hip loading versus chest loading.
Yeah, so a hip load gun's typically going to have a much longer loading length to it. So that's going to make this easier to hip load. So we're looking at about 8.5 inches on the loading length of this guy, which is a pretty reasonable number for what we would consider a true rear handle gun. And probably should have done this before putting the whole gun back together. But we're going to take the overall gun weight. And kind of the reason why this number is important to pay attention to, the heavier the gun is itself, the less recoil it's going to have. And we're looking at 3 pounds on the Riffe Euro 100. So that might not mean a ton to you right off the bat, just basing it off of one gun, but when you compare that to, let's say, a 100 centimeter pipe gun, it's going to be theoretically a little bit lighter gun. That's why pipe guns have a little more recoil than wood guns. So, not to start the pipe versus wood gun debate in this video. Maybe that's a video for another day, where Robin and I can scream at each other about what's better, pole spears or slings. So, all that being said, let's get into the Xhale Punch Rating of the Riffe Euro 100 centimeter. I guess real quick before we get to that, we're going to go over the safeties on each of these guns as well. So the Riffe Euro has a trigger block style safety, which means it's a physical block preventing the trigger from moving, and it is a flipper style, which we actually really like. All stainless steel in there as well. No plastic parts in the safety. You got a nice positive disengagement and engagement on that guy. So that's not really a rating, that's just more of an observation. Now, punch rating, Rodman, I might need some input from you because I kind of forgot the math here. All right. You ready?
Yes, sir.
The Xhale Punch Rating official for the Riffe Euro 100 centimeter is 49.28.
So if we're on a scale of 0 to 100, the 100 Riffe is kind of smack dab in the middle.
I like that. That's right about where I wanted it to land. So now, again, this number doesn't mean much to us with just one gun. I think what we should do, we should keep track of all these punch ratings on our website. So we'll have like a chart of that on every single gun. And that way you can kind of compare and get an idea of where different guns land. Because there's definitely going to be some variation in brands of guns, depending on what kind of band stretch percentage they're running, how much usable band stretch is on the gun, stuff like that. So we're definitely going to see some variation. And honestly, it'll be interesting to see how much, like the scale of how much like one unit of punch rating, like
Gotcha.
How much more powerful is that?
I see this number being really effective with pole spears as well.
Yeah.
Trying to...
For sure, and we should definitely do that as well. And then the next battle is going to be trying to figure out how to do this rig with a roller setup as well, so we can start doing some of the Rob Allen rollers, Koa rollers,
Gotcha.
stuff like that.
So the Riffe Euro 100 is kind of this industry standard. If you guys want to see it compared to any other gun, let us know.
There we go. So thanks for watching this one, guys. If there's anything you think we've done wrong here, hopefully we're going to get our process dialed in a little bit better for calculating this. It's still a little fresh in our brains, but yeah, it's only going to get better. And I'm sure we're going to tweak this as we go as well. So just bear with us on that, and we'll see you guys in the next one.